The tutorial that we're going to do today involves a little bit more detail. You don't quite have the freedom that you would have when you're creating a free-flowing object like the dinosaur or your own cartoon. So we're going to look at using the snap tools and the grid to draw some objects that are lined up with each other. So we're going to do this by scrolling through this tutorial activity, which will show us how to create a helicopter. And when we're all said and done with this activity, we should have something that looks more or less like this. All right, so to get started, there are a few things we have to do to set up our page appropriately. So I'm going to jump back to Inkscape. And under the File menu, I'm going to choose Document Properties. So these are the exact same steps you're seeing in the instructions. So what I want to do here is go to Grid, and I need to create a new grid. And when I do that, I get these grid properties that show up. So I want to make sure the grid is enabled, which means it's turned on. I want to make sure it's visible, and I want my snap to grid lines to be visible. So once those three options are selected, I'm going to switch my spacing X and my spacing Y from 1 to a value of 5. And that's simply going to change the size of the visible grid that we see. Once we have those options set, I'm going to go ahead and close this box. I'm going to go back to the same place, Document Properties. This time I'm going to click on Page, and I'm going to switch it from a portrait page, which is tall and narrow, to a landscape page, which is short and wide. And I can go ahead and close that box again. So now I am ready to start drawing. So I'm going to zoom in so that I have my page more or less centered on my work screen. And I'm going to start to draw some of the things that it's going to ask us to do. So I'm going to quickly jump back now to the tutorial. So we've taken care of the first step. So now what we're going to do is start by drawing a bunch of rectangles on our screen. So I'm going to start with the three main ones you see here. And then once I have them on the screen, I'm going to start to add some other features. And you're going to see as we add these rectangles and some circles or ovals, eventually we're going to manipulate these nodes you see here with all of the green dots, and we're going to change the corner positioning to turn this boxy looking collection of boxes into something that looks more like a helicopter. So as we continue to work our way through here, we're going to refine the way the helicopter looks. We're going to add some detail. We're going to put some highlights on here to show sun reflecting off the top of objects. And then we're going to put some shadows to show the darker side under those objects. Once we get all that done, we're going to put in a background. We're going to duplicate a couple of copies of our helicopter and turn them all black so it looks like black helicopters in the background. And then we'll finish off our sky to make our final helicopter look good. Oh, I'm noticing here in my tutorial I've repeated that first page twice. So notice this says Stage 1 Basic Shapes, and this also says Stage 1 Basic Shapes. So I've duplicated that one, so just ignore one of those in the instructions that will be posted for you. Okay, so let's jump back to our activity. So we'll go back to Inkscape, and I'm going to take out my rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. Now you'll notice when I'm drawing this that this is snapping to the grid, which means it's going to connect to the corner of those grid lines. It will not allow me to connect anywhere else other than those corners, which is exactly what I want it to do. Now, when you first draw your shape, you may get black and gray like I did, or you may have something totally different. So if you have something totally different, what I'm going to ask you to do is go to your Object, Fill and Stroke, and I'm going to get you to select the appropriate fill color. So turn it to a light gray. And I'm going to get you to go to your stroke paint and move it so it goes to a black color. And I want your stroke style to be something fairly thin. Maybe set it at a distance or a thickness of 1 at the very most. So there I have set my characteristics of my fill and my stroke thickness. Now here's one more trick that's going to be very useful for the remainder of this activity. If I double click on this box, up here in this corner it gives me some information. It tells me my fill and my stroke. If I double click on this, it brings up my preferences box. So I'm going to tell the rectangle tool that every time I want to use it, I want to use this style. And this style is going to be this. So I can then close that, and you'll notice now every time I draw a rectangle, oh, it didn't take. Let me go back in and do that quickly one more time. Double click, rectangle, use this object, take from selection. There we go. So that's the one I need to make sure I click. So that means every time I now draw with my rectangle, it's going to be the color I want. All right, so I'm going to delete those samples there, and we're going to continue on with our helicopter. So if I jump back to my helicopter now in the instructions, it shows us that we want to create 1, 2, 3 rectangle boxes. So I'm going to do 2 tall thin ones, then a larger one. And it doesn't really matter if you do them the exact same size. We're going to adjust them as we go anyway. So I'm going to draw a second one on there, and notice again I'm still using my snap to grid. And then I'm going to draw a larger one. Okay, so that's step 1. Now it asks me to draw one smaller one at the front and some larger different shaped ones at the back. And this is again forming the shape of the helicopter, just a rough shape with the square. So I'll go back out to my Inkscape. I'm going to draw another one there. They have us drawing a big one there. Got a tall one here. Smaller one here, and another one there. So there I have my basic shape started. Now I'm not going to do this whole activity with you here, but I am going to do that much and just tell you that the next step is going to involve us starting to manipulate some of these nodes. For example, I'm going to click on this box. I'm going to choose Path, Object to Path, and then we're going to use our node selection tool like we've been using before. But this time I'm going to move it just a little bit, like so. And then I'm going to go to the next square, do the same thing, path, object to path, and I'm going to move this down to there, and I'm going to move this one down to there. And again, I'm just starting to move these around to make them look more helicopter-like in their shape. And I'll do one more here for you before I'll let you continue on your own. Object to path. I'll bring this one down to here. And again, as you see in the tutorial, as you work your way through, it tells you with these green highlights where you want to move all of these nodes to. So again, as you start to move them, you're going to see them take on the shape of the helicopter. Okay, so that tutorial is fairly straightforward. I'm going to let you try and continue on from there. Maybe I'll just do one more node here for you to show you how this is going to start to take shape with the helicopter. I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to start to add another node. I'm going to put another one right here. And I'm going to bring this guy up. Okay, so there we go. We're starting to make this look much more like the helicopter. So I'll let you work your way through that part of the tutorial. I may have another video to attach later to show you some more tips and tricks on the helicopter, but good luck with that. So again, today we're dealing more with the structure. We want things to be aligned with each other rather than free-formed like our cartoon character was yesterday. Now, if you're working on things and you find that your snap gets in the way, you can turn it off just by turning this button off right here. And then when I go to draw things, if I want to add features, the snap's no longer available for me because I've turned it off. And again, you can turn it back on at any time right there. Okay, good luck with your helicopter.